All right. Thanks for joining us today, guys. We got 3 seminarians from the St. Paul Seminary here today to talk about formation and seminary life, particularly through the lens of the great game of basketball. Gentlemen, thanks for taking some time out of your crazy schedule in the seminary to talk some hoops today.
Thanks for having us, Phil.
Yeah,
Can we
pleasure.
talk at the same time, or is that going to mess everything up?
It doesn't mess everything up, but the more you talk, the less I have to talk, and that's good for everybody.
Okay.
So,
Okay, then.
no worries there. Can you all just, we'll go down the line, start with Neal. Just introduce yourself, what diocese you're from, and what year you are in formation at the St. Paul Seminary.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Neal Anderson, and I'm from the St. Cloud Diocese, and I am in pre-theology 2, so year 2 of 6.
My name is Mitchell Kendrioski. I'm from the Archdiocese of Hartford, Connecticut, so I'm a fish out of water. And I'm in 3rd theology. I get ordained a deacon in June, so I've been in seminary for 5 years. This is year 5.
And my name is Dominic Miller, studying for the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, here locally, and I'm in theology 2, year 4 of 6.
You say that with so much excitement.
Well, it's just crazy, you know.
It is crazy.
yeah.
It goes by really fast.
It does go by really
yeah.
fast. I
You
still
guys are
feel
in
like I just
formation a
entered.
good chunk of time, too.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so
They're old.
they're old.
Yeah.
I don't know what that makes me then. We don't need to go that direction. But so you guys just got back. Today's a Monday. Yesterday, from a little thing called the Sales Invitational Tournament. Somebody describe to me kind of what that is, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, you're both looking at me. Okay, so 4 years ago, usually Mundelein Seminary in Illinois hosts a basketball tournament, and they didn't. And then St. Francis de Sales Seminary in Milwaukee said, okay, well, we want to play basketball. So they decided to host a tournament, and they have the facilities for it. And so it's a seminary basketball tournament, and it's been going on 4 years. 13 seminaries were there this year, which is incredible. And I think 350 priests and seminarians were either playing or watching or coaching or just hanging out. So it's a super awesome event. Yeah. Is that good?
That's fantastic. 13 seminaries. Now, your guys' schedule, kind of like we were talking about, just with formation going by so fast, it's pretty spoken for, you know. It's pretty tight between prayer time and class time and fraternity and all the different things you do. What was it like to get together with that many brother seminarians? This is from, like, pretty much all over the country, right? I mean, what's that like to kind of just be around men from different places who are going through the same experience you guys are?
Yeah, I mean, it was a blessing. I kind of made the joke. So there's like the USCCB, so United States Catholic Conference of Bishops. It's kind of like the USCCB, where it's United States Catholic Conference of Basketball, and and so it's basically just like a bunch of Catholic, just a bunch of seminarians, and you feel unified with American Catholicism, and that you're all kind of like fighting this battle together. You're kind of working for the salvation of souls in this culture together, and you kind of all experience a similar upbringing, and so you feel really unified with Mother Church just in this culture.
Yeah, to build on like Neal's point, it's kind of cool. Like on a team, like a basketball team, you know, if we're all on the same team, we're kind of fighting for a common goal to like win the game, and that's what we're doing as competing against seminarians against each other. But then also as seminarians as a whole, we're also on then the same team for then the whole country, which is kind of cool. So even though we're competing against each other, then there's another way in which we're all on the same team, like serving for the Lord, which is kind of cool, as Neal said.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of cool to see that.
So are there did you guys have tryouts, or can anybody who wants to play kind of play, or what's the lead up to the tournament like, and who?
Well, Dom was the guardian of the roster, I believe.
The guardian of the roster. Yeah, I mean, ideally it'd be,
If you can't dunk, you don't make the team. That's pretty
No.
Yeah, so Mitch was the first one.
I was gonna say, Mitch, I saw Mitch playing on YouTube though.
Yeah,
It's pretty springy.
Not that spring.
he looks tall when he's sitting, but
So DeSales makes it a little bit easy because they say you can only have 12 on the roster. Technically, we had 15, but we didn't know the rule until we had told guys they can be on the team.
Is
So-
it healthy scratches?
Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah. But we kind of we ask guys, hey, if you want to play on the team, you can approach us. We'll talk about it. And we want to go and win, and that's fun. So we try to put together the best team to be competitive for the tournament. But we also want guys who want to play and want to be there. And so that's a lot of the factors that go into it. Some of us are pretty good at basketball. Some of us never played basketball. Some of us are athletes that can play basketball and get better year after year. So it's a mix of all that.
Awesome. Dom, you played hoops at Mary, right?
1 year.
1 year.
I like to say that because it's like, if I played 4, I'd probably be really, really good. I only played 1 year, and I didn't really play, so.
You're setting the bar where it's supposed to be.
Uh-huh.
Did either of you play sports in college, in undergrad, or?
I played 3 years of college soccer in Boston at Wentworth Institute of Technology. But kind of like Dom, my first year I didn't really play. My second year I played, and third year I played, and then retired after that.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Neal?
Yeah, similar to Mitch, played 3 years at St. John's basketball, and until it was a blessing, it was a joy.
Yeah. For each of you, I mean, this becomes kind of a deep loaded question, but playing sports at somewhat of a high level and everything that goes into that, what have you taken from that into seminary formation, whether it's sacrifice, suffering, right? You know, these different things. We talk in the seminary world a lot about how, God uses your experience for good no matter what it is or what your background is. So maybe for each of you, how has he used your experience in sports to bring you to where you are today? That's such a long-winded question.
It was good.
It's a good question, though.
I hate it when people lead in so much like that. I got to work on that. Go ahead.
For me, basketball was like my life from 8th grade till freshman year of college. So after I quit, it became less serious, but that was my focus. And so that was a little bit unhealthy, but I think sports are an incredible vehicle, especially to grow in virtues. And so I know like a lot of different virtues I grew in, just natural virtues in high school, like accountability, respect, obedience, hard work, the ability to undergo suffering at a certain level. And these are all natural things, but they can be united to Christ and, kind of vivified into supernatural virtues. So I think there's a lot of potential if it's, and I kind of talked about this after one of the games or before during this weekend, there's a lot of potential for sports and athletics if they're put in the right order in the hierarchy of things. So if sports are at the top, that's not good. But, if it's like, I see sports as a way to, stay in shape or to just have fun and go about recreation, or I want to grow in the virtue of patience because I'm not really good with my jumper, but I'm going to work at it and be patient with myself or with another person working on their fast break layups.
Finally made it.
So, I think that's one thing I see really valuable in sports. And for me, I think too, like when I quit freshman year, that was like a very, very difficult decision because this is what my life had been about for so long. And in a way, I kind of see that as that disappointment, but the ability to make that tough decision was preparation to eventually think about entering seminary, because it was like a major life switch, a major path change from basketball to no basketball, and then before seminary from thinking I'm going to get married to, okay, I think maybe God wants me to go to the seminary. So I think, that for me, those are the two main things, just virtue and a little preparation to make a tough decision through God's grace. So.
That's good. I'd say for me, it's like kind of like it's like goal oriented. I think like same thing kind of as Dom. Like ever since I was 5th grade or 6th grade, my life was all about soccer. Just love soccer, love playing sports, and up and through college. And then in college, it kind of switched, and I started loving engineering, and I started just loving to study engineering, and that's kind of what got me to quit soccer when it was time was kind of bumping into each other, where it's either time for soccer, time for engineering. It wasn't really enough time for both. And then so I chose engineering, and then shortly after that, I had a strong like reversion to the faith. So I started kind of loving the Catholic faith more, and then after that, then Christ called me to the priesthood. Then I started to realize like goal went from like wanting to compete in soccer to wanting to learn engineering to like wanting to, love Christ and grow in relationship with God and get into heaven. And like learning to work for a goal is kind of something I think I learned in sports, which now like I learn now as like a seminarian is my job is to like study and pray so that as a priest I can like lead other people to God. And it's like what Aquinas talks about in the Summa, like man's last end, and like what's last in the order of execution is like first in the order of intention. So like we intend to get to heaven, grow in relation with God. So that's like what's firstly in our mind, and everything we do kind of flows from that. So the discipline to be able to like keep that in mind, I think kind of comes from the sports, because when you're practicing, you're trying to be excellent at your craft. You're trying to be excellent basketball or soccer. As Christians, we're just trying to be excellent followers of Christ, and we're trying to evangelize. And it's like the same skill set, natural virtues that kind of get baptized with supernatural grace. So grace perfects nature. Yeah.
Mitch
so
is
there aren't
Mitch
many-
is the smartest one here.
Yes.
There aren't many conversations where you can like tie the Summa to working on a jumper.
I suppose. I just had class with the Summa this morning, so it was a little fresh
Hey, that's
in my
good
mind.
timing.
So,
God's timing. That's great.
yeah.
Top that, Neal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Well, I can't top the Summa. But,
No
but
one can.
yeah. But my experience was, I guess overall, I heard a priest say this, but like sports taught me how to lose and taught me how to handle like losing. So like in college, I played 3 years. I actually wanted to play a 4th year, but I was actually like technically like cut from the team my senior year. And that was really tough because like Dom said, you kind of put your identity in it. And so just like knowing that I just lost. Like I lost. I was trying to do something and I lost. And that was my whole life. So it's like, I felt like just lost what I know. And so, but it was such a great preparation to be like, I lost something that's very important to me, like what now kind of thing. And I knew Jesus before that, but just after that, it was like a real huge reliance on Jesus. I think it's like everything in this world is just very temporary, and it's just a temporary crown. And it really made me focus on just, the crown of heaven, and to realize that like even death is kind of like a loss, but then us just surrendering to Jesus's power, it becomes then a victory, and then we are victorious forever in heaven. So overall, it taught me how to handle losing, and that this world there's a lot of losses, but Jesus is strong, and he's the strong man. So
Amen. So back to this tournament, I think it was like over half the seminary population was there between the guys who made the cut. It was pretty close. The guys who made the cut. I know I can see right out my office window where people have to walk to like get to the rest of campus right now, and it's just this trail of guys on Friday, like one after another. And you guys had like a good cheering section. You could kind of hear it on the YouTube live stream too. What was that like, just kind of from a experience of fraternity to have so many of your brothers? I know you guys go to Rome, you go to the Holy Land, you do these different things, but this kind of had its own unique twist to it, it seemed like.
Yeah, it was a tangible experience of like the communion of saints. You just felt like people are just cheering you on.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I felt like they were cheering us on, but they almost didn't care whether we won or lost. They were almost just like cheering us as humans on. And they just loved us.
Yeah, I think when I'm like building that, it was like, I think very beautiful. Felt like we were playing, or like I felt like I was playing. Yeah, to compete hard to win, like Dom said, was also like, but I was just competing to represent the seminary, to represent Father Taphorn, and just to kind of be there with my brothers. And it was just fun to play with the guys, and also like play for the other brothers who were there cheering us on. It was just, it was cool having them there. It was awesome.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that, one of the main reasons the tournament exists is for fraternity amongst seminarians, and 350 priests and seminarians.
That's a lot.
But then, we got a bus to get players, fans, and priests of the seminary to go, and, time off over the weekend, excused from different things, all just to experience fraternity at this tournament. And yeah, it's just cool to see, our rector and seminary faculty support that, and then also DeSales Seminary and all these other seminaries support that and try to make that happen, and how important fraternity is for us as humans, but also especially men as priests, as future priests, to have each other's backs, to be able to go to each other and to start building that now, and really emphasize the importance of it.
Yeah. And I think that was shown kind of at the end of all of our games when both teams would come together and pray at the end of the game. It kind of showed how what we were really there for was something greater than just playing basketball.
Yeah, basketball's like the excuse almost.
Yeah.
It's like guys usually don't just sit at a table one-on-one and just talk to each other. We need to play cards at least, So it's just an excuse just to kind of get together and hang out.
Give a man something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. The production of it looked pretty good too. They really seemed to run a good event for you guys. Is it at the Bucks practice facility, or is that their old floor, or what? You see the Fear the Deer on the court and stuff. Is there a story behind that, or?
I think so.
Apparently, the Bucks. So I think it's the Pastoral Center of the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, and they rented out land to the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks built their practice facilities there, used it for a time, and then wanted to move, and just left it. And so the seminarians of the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, and who go to St. Francis de Sales, can use that. And so that was, I'm kind of used to it now. This is my 4th year going to the tournament, but the first year was this is awesome. Yeah. This is so cool. So that's pretty cool. I actually prefer their other gyms. So they have a gym on their seminary campus, Miller Gym, and it's smaller. It's kind of rustic. It's like a barn, and it just gets packed in there for certain games and loud. And so it's a pretty cool atmosphere when you play.
That's awesome. I want to say I read Pat Connaughton helped underwrite the tournament too. He either played for the Bucks or plays for the Bucks.
I think he plays for them right now. I don't follow sports as much as I used to, but he was good. I think he played at Notre Dame.
He does,
and then he gets good minutes now.
Yes.
As an NBA player.
Yes.
And so he supports us seminarians getting together and hooping.
Cool.
So that's pretty cool.
So I'm sure Pat Connaughton will see this. So thank you, Pat.
I think there was 3
Thanks,
big
Pat.
donors because they had all the seminaries got there. They had signed thank you cards, and there's 3 of them.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think there's 3 main donors, and I'm assuming he was one of them.
It was just a well-run event. They, like I said, they live stream it. You got these nice facilities you're playing in. Could hear the PA announcer. It's a lot of games too, right? You guys played 3 games.
We played 3 because we lost. We lost the 3rd, but in years past we played 5. I think what's the most you could play? If you were
7, I think.
Yeah, if you were the 14 seed and won the championship, you could play.
You could play 7, 5 on Saturday. I think.
How do they seed you guys? That's
the best looking. So we
the
always
best
get
looking.
Oh my gosh.
So you guys
they
get a
do
low seed?
a kind of round robin, and
Yeah.
then
That's
they
based
do a
off of that.
seeding, and then they do single elimination after that. So
You guys are all part of high school tournaments, youth tournaments. That's an undertaking to organize all that.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They
Shout
organize
out-
it so well.
Yeah, shout out
Yeah.
to St. Francis
Oh,
de
yeah.
Sales.
Yeah.
They're incredible.
Yeah, they're
hosts.
so
They get
good.
better every
Hospitality,
single year.
incredible, yeah.
Yeah.
They take care of everything. Yeah, they're so good.
That's super cool. There's some other, things that you guys do. I want to say you got Rector's Bowl, which is an annual flag football game against SJV, St. John Vianney College Seminary across the street from St. Paul Seminary here. What other kind of fraternal sporting related activities have been a big part of your formation?
Man. What?
basketball.
Yeah,
Usually-
Neal, just talk about Saturdays.
Oh,
Yeah, we usually so we'll play for the most part every Saturday when we can, when there's a gym that's available for us to use. And with that, we'll just invite any of the seminarians to come join us. But we also will invite other young men from just around the area that we know, and so they just get to come and enter into our life, and it's been really beautiful. Just I love how sports is just such an easy entry to get into anyone's life, and so it's like there's people that I know aren't Catholic, aren't practicing Catholics, aren't Christian, that are like playing with us, and it's just a great time. You're just playing something that you both enjoy, so it's also unifying to other. And I think that basketball is the most common communal sport played with young men in America.
And Neal has stats and facts to back that up for sure.
That he
So
made up.
But I agree with, like, it's for us this Saturday, basketball has just been an awesome opportunity for encounter and just for guys to get together and maybe get closer to Jesus. So I had a high school basketball teammate who I ran into a year ago, and I was like, "Oh, hey, you want to come on these, come out to these Saturday hoop sessions?" And he said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And I wasn't super close to him in high school, but he started coming out, and eventually he asked if I wanted to get breakfast with him one day, and he was like, "Yeah, like I've just been impressed because all you guys are seminarians and you're normal." And I didn't think that was a thing at the seminary. I thought seminarians were all just kind of weird or, quirky, and that actually cracked the door open for his discernment a little bit. I don't know what he's going to do. He's still praying about it, but he's open, and he's like, that really helped me. And so it's just like, that's awesome. And it's just because I invited him to play basketball. So
yeah, similar story. That's awesome, Dom. Praise God. I had a similar story to a friend where I'm just like, yeah, he's living in the cities now, and I'm like, hey, we play basketball, and so he comes to play basketball. I've been coming for a few weeks, and all of a sudden he just like calls me randomly. Never, we don't really, just called me randomly. He's like, hey, like, can I just like pray at a chapel? Like, do you have a chapel open at the seminary? And I'm just like, I just had no idea where he was at with his walk with Jesus. And he just called me and said, and he wanted to do that. And so it's like, yeah, would that ever happen if we, play basketball? And I know that the Lord's, him and the Lord are still going on a great adventure now. So it's just like sports are just used, as St. Paul said, like all things to all people, sports are just used as a way to encounter other men who need Jesus.
That's beautiful. I want to go back to something Dom said earlier too. To build off with that, like having sports kind of in the proper perspective or place in the hierarchy of one's life, I think. I'm not going to get on a soapbox here, but it's probably safe to say, at least in some circles, sports is maybe higher in the hierarchy than it should or needs to be. I mean, you guys aren't super far removed from coming up through the youth ranks and stuff, but even in the time you guys have been in seminary, it seems like things are just crazy. Like the pressure that's put on kids, the demands and stuff. And, having played at a high level, I mean, how can people, I'm thinking of parents or just Catholics who want to promote the goods that we're talking about here right now, but still want to be able to make it to Mass on Sundays too. I mean, how can people kind of strike that balance, do you think, when sports is just like it's got so many tentacles in our culture, which is less than perfect right now?
Yeah, I think that's like a really big thing, and I've like reflected on this a lot, and I think it kind of comes down to like what St. Augustine says, where like our hearts are restless until they rest in thee. And I think like our culture a lot will think that there's kind of this idea of success, which is kind of like self-made, and a lot of times like in sports, but like we're made by Christ, we're made for Christ, so our hearts are only going to rest in Christ, not in like winning a championship, right? Like we just had the Super Bowl, like people win the Super Bowl, it's like awesome, but like then they kind of come off that high, and then you have a whole season to kind of go back to that. But the idea is like, imagine if you kind of had that high 24/7 for all eternity. Well, like that's what heaven is, right? And so like when we're striving to get closer to Christ, like that's something that is like permanent. And like all things that sports can give us or anything created on the earth is something that's only like temporary. So I think it's like important to like just remember, like to remind people that we have created things and we have the Creator, and we always kind of look down to the created things and think those will satisfy our heart. But our heart was made for the Creator, so that's the only thing that will satisfy. But I think it's hard. It's really hard to kind of rip away people from the culture and say that's not going to satisfy, because there are they're good things. Yeah. They're just not the greatest things. They don't get destroyed. They just have to be put below God. And I think it's hard to do. I don't really know how to convince people of that.
Yeah. Keep Sunday for God. Yeah, I think. I mean, obviously, you could. I play basketball on Sundays sometimes, but I don't miss mass because of it. But I think that's a huge thing. Is just, yeah, like Mitch said, if things are getting out of order in your life, put God first, and
Yeah, only
hopefully-
God will satisfy. Yeah.
Words to live by.
Stuff.
How'd each of you kind of get into your respective sports, basketball, soccer, and basketball? Just walk me through that journey a little bit. Start with you.
So, yeah, my father really likes sports, and that's just a way that we hung out. And yeah, him and his brothers played sports in college. He was a baseball player. And so, yeah, that's just kind of how we grew in friendship, and it just went from there.
For me, it was my father liked sports, but he did not. He liked football. But my parents think when I was young, like 5 years old, I think they just put me in the soccer league and stuff, and I just happened to be good, so I kept playing, and I enjoyed it. And then my father wanted me to play football, which I kind of did too. And so in 4th grade, I played a year. I hated it, and then went back to soccer. But then freshman year, I tried football again, and then I loved it. And then played that for 2 years, and then went back to soccer just because I stopped growing, so I couldn't really play much more football. And then, yeah, so it's kind of more of a fluke thing. My parents just kind of like put me into it and then kind of stuck.
I think for me, it was a combination of my brother and my neighbor. So my brother is 8 years older than me. He's like a big role model in my life, and he was playing basketball through high school, and he played 1 year of college as well, actually. But I looked up to him so much. I was like, I want to play that sport too. And then also my neighbor across the street was really into basketball, and so we'd play one-on-one in the backyard, and he would always just scrub me, and I hated it. And like I can be competitive,
Yeah.
but yeah, I didn't like that, so I had to get better and better and better. So I think that's kind of what started it for me. And yeah, just a great way to hang out with guys, and yeah, something to, have a goal and work towards. I think that was a big part of it too.
And I think there's something about sports that's tough, as like Alex Hall, one of the other seminarians, will say. Sports is kind of like modern day war that's safe in some sense. Like, and there's something natural to man that wants to compete like that. And so, like, I think there's something that draws us to some men and women to play sports like that.
Yeah, like when there's I can just see why sports are so popular in America, because when you're not pursuing like the war of good versus evil, like there's something, especially in men, there's something you want to fight for. And so it's like, well, sports is just an easy outlet to do that. So you see why it's so popular. So sports is definitely like a good thing for children to like work on and be virtuous and like kind of participate in this kind of safe war, as Mitch said. But then like, as you get older, it's like, set down what is for the childish things and become a man. So fight against actual evil and pursue the good. And so,
Yeah, which is heaven.
Which is heaven.
Yeah.
The most extreme example I can think of is hockey fights. So these guys will pummel each other, and they shake hands and laugh. Like, there's something about dudes that you're right. Like, we want to compete. Even the fact that this tournament, like you said, like we wanted to go there to win, and like that's okay. Again, it's in moderation, and you can compete, but then pray together at the end. What was it? Men are weird like that, right? Like we'll beat the snot out of each other on the court for an hour, and then go have beers together when we're done. Like it's just there's some beauty in that, I think, and I think we have to recapture that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Nothing to add.
I mean, I do have a story that fits that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, now you have to tell it because the camera's
younger,
on.
I threw a football at my friend. He wasn't looking. This was my neighbor friend. I didn't really mean to hit him in the head, like in the face, square, but I did, and he immediately just sprinted at me, tackled me, and punched me, a couple times, and then I went home across the street, pretty angry, and he was angry at me, and then an hour later, we both met each other in the street, and we're just like, hey, and then just started hanging out again. So it's just like,
It's like nothing. But yeah, there's some beauty in that pursuit of good that sports can start teaching at a young age. So last question just for each of you, just a quick comment on how formation's going. You're all at maybe a little bit different stages in the journey, but how it's going for you, and if there's anything that us, our viewers, can pray for as you keep discerning, feel free to share that too.
I'll say for me, formation's been great. Like, it's honestly been like the best 5 years of my life. Hasn't come without its difficulties. Especially probably this year's been the hardest, leading up to ordination as I get ordained in June. But there's a way that, like, seminary is just kind of unlike any other place I've been, where the common goal is something, it's supernatural. It's about God. It's about heaven. And it kind of, like, touches every aspect of the person, where, like, everything else I've done, sports or engineering, has just been, like, a part. Like, sports is the physical aspect, engineering is like the intellectual aspect, but priestly formation kind of covers it all. And there's like a totality of that is like very calming and peaceful, and like can draw all men together, which when you come to the seminary, you have men from all walks of life, and they all come together for a common purpose, which is Christ, which I think it's just really beautiful. And so I just feel very blessed and thankful to be where I am. And for prayers, just pray for like continued preparation for ordination, and just pray for my family.
Yeah, Mitch, what's going to be happening soon for you?
So on June 22nd, I will get ordained a deacon.
Let's go.
So when you get ordained a deacon, that's kind of when you make your commitment to pray the breviary, the liturgy of the hours, and then also you promise celibacy. So at that point, you're kind of like set on the track to become a priest. So it's a pretty big step, and I'm pretty excited, and it's kind of all God's grace that does it. So, and it's God's grace that prepares me. So I'm just trying to be a suitable instrument, but it's been beautiful. And like I said, it's been the best 5 years of my life, and it's quite a journey to be where I am, I must say. So it's God's amazing, and God always wins.
What's going to happen to your soul?
So when you get ordained a deacon, my soul is going to have an indelible mark, I think.
Big moves only. Let's
So
go,
cool.
Mitch.
So whether I make it to heaven or hell, I'll have a merit badge from heaven or a mark of shame if I'm in hell.
Oh.
You took a
I mean, I
turn.
think that's true, but yeah. So you get kind of indelible mark. You're kind of marked for Christ, and then it's like being like branded as a soldier, like the Roman army would brand. It's like being branded and being sent out. And then, I mean, the mark on the soul is a little different than a brand, because it actually gives you like powers to do something spiritually, to bless people and to administer sacraments. But it's a way like you kind of get adhered into Christ, and when you're ordained a priest, you're like ordained into Christ the head, and so then you act in the person of Christ in a special way when you administer the sacraments, and it's quite beautiful. It's an amazing how God like lowers himself and raises us up to him. Like God didn't have to choose to have a like fleshly priestly class that would help in his mission. He could have done it any other way, but he chose to allow people to enter into his mission, which is such a gift that we can receive. So it's quite a blessing.
I will just say too, if you've never been to a transitional diaconate ordination, it's not something as an everyday Catholic you necessarily think about. Obviously, priestly ordination's a big deal, and that's kind of the end of the road, but also the beginning. But like you just kind of laid out in beautiful terms what a big step that transitional diaconate ordination is, and there's a real beauty there at one of those too. So again, for viewers, if you ever have a chance to get to one of those, it's a beautiful thing as well. So good job teeing them up, boys. I should let you ask all the questions today.
Yeah, that was good. You guys got me for both sides.
I just like emphasizing the different marks on the soul. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Mysterious.
So how's formation going? We're far removed from the question, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's I think for me too, and it's probably a combination of I think this is what the Lord wants me to do with my life, and so that's why I've been so happy and just filled with like a deeper joy. But yeah, I've really enjoyed seminary as well in my 4th year, and every year it gets better. And there are those difficulties with studies or schedule being so full, but we stay grounded in Christ and we get through it, and one day at a time. But yeah, just so gifted. Just kind of like the St. Francis de Sales tournament, we receive so much. We have received so much at the seminary. Just so many people. I reflected on this before. So many people. Phil, people like you, working for us to help us become, what I think God wants us to be, and that's incredible, and it's such a gift, and it's very humbling. And usually, when spring semester rolls around and is finishing, I guess we're there, spring semester, but when it's finishing, I just get overwhelmed with gratitude at the end, just like all these people helping us just like be better men and be men for Christ and be good priests if that's what he wants. So yeah, we're really blessed, and it's not for us, it's so we can glorify God and spread the gospel and help be mediators of his grace. So
Dom, what happened to you in October? Yeah.
Installed as an acolyte.
Yeah. What's an acolyte? Never heard of it.
An acolyte, it's like a fancy server. Is that a good answer for you?
That's what my mom called me after I got installed. A glorified altar boy. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, but you actually, I served as an altar boy growing up, and I remember returning to serving as a seminarian was a really cool moment for me. It's like, I'm closer to the altar, I'm closer to the sacrifice, and what a privilege it is. And as an acolyte, you get even closer, and you get to help the deacon and the priest at the altar and purify vessels, and you have some extraordinary responsibilities with the Eucharist, like you can expose and repose the Blessed Sacrament and be a extraordinary communion minister. But yeah, it's cool to just get a little bit closer, and no mark on the soul though. No mark on the soul.
You got to work your way up to the mark on the soul. What is the progression? You're lector, then acolyte, deacon, priest,
and then you get candidacy before lector. So candidacy would come first.
Admission to
and
candidacy.
you don't receive candy. It's like you're a candidate.
You should receive.
You
No,
should
we'll give
receive
candy
candy.
to Neal because he likes.
Yeah,
candy.
you should give.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take a fruit roll up.
Mother Angelica said every time you go to confession, you should go buy yourself a sundae after.
Whoa.
It's kind of like that.
I like that.
Just like that.
I like that.
Wow.
You're a little earlier in the journey.
Yeah, I should start like a ice cream shop right next to a Catholic church.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah, and then
Side hustle.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So formation for me, going off of like what Dominic is, saying about gratitude. Like, yeah, I just feel like I'm just receiving so much love. Literally, the image that comes to my mind is I think Homer in The Simpsons is like being fed like donuts. I totally forgot what's scene exactly, but he's being fed donuts, and he's like keep being fed donuts as like a punishment, but he just loves it more and more, and they're just like baffled by how many donuts he can eat.
This is sad. I know exactly what scene you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
And but that's like literally how I feel with just the way that like the Father is loving me. It's just like there's just so much going into my heart, and just so much love from the faculty, from the priest, from my brother seminarians, from all the sacrifices that people make, and it's just like, wow, like I'm just so loved, like the Father loves me so much, and to know that like the Father is doing that same thing in my brother seminarians, but he's also doing the same thing like in the faculty. He's doing the same thing in the priest. Like the Father just loves them so much. He just wants to keep giving. It's Christmas morning every morning, Phil.
I think the other thing that's cool is like, at least for me, you look back and like 2 years ago, I really, needed to work on this. But all of a sudden I realize, God's brought me to a place where I'm a better man and I don't have this problem anymore. I'm better at, relating to another guy or whatever it is. You're like,
saying no.
What?
Better at saying
no. Yeah, saying no when it's good to say no. That's another story. But yeah, you just kind of like, sometimes you don't realize where the growth is and where the Lord's taking you, but all of a sudden, like silent retreat, which we just all had, is a great opportunity to be like, God's doing a lot, and he's doing it behind the scenes, and that's how he likes to work. And yeah, it's all good. It's all grace. Yeah.
Beautiful, boys. Thank you so much for sharing your hearts, for sharing your story, talking a little ball, talking things a lot deeper than ball, and for your yes to the Lord and everything you're doing.
Thanks, Phil.
Great. Thanks,
Phil.
Phil. This was awesome.
Thanks, Mike
Thanks,
and
everyone.
camera crew.
Yes.